Hello friends, welcome back to another live stream. Thanks so much for being here. We're starting a couple of minutes late today. Had some tech issues getting set up. I'm in yet again another hotel room. I'm on the road today. Let's get a little bit more light on my face, see if that helps. But we are covering everything to do with Google Workspace. If you are new to the channel, we are itGenius. We help small business owners systemize, organize, and scale using Google Workspace, using other small business tech tools. We focus a lot on Workspace, but we also work with many other small business tools, applications, and add-ons, services online, SaaS programs. And our whole aim is really to help you be productive, help your teams to be productive, help you to run a remote business, remote team, scale up your team. If you're interested in that and interested in learning from us, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And in this stream and my semi-regular streams, I opened up the floor for you to ask whatever questions you'd like to ask. And so that can be anything to do with Workspace, anything to do with small business tech, anything to do with integrating into the Google ecosystem, anything to do with your technology strategy or systemization strategy or getting your team working productively, even managing a remote team. We were managing a remote team for more than 6 years before COVID started, a fully remote team, zero office. And so we've walked that path for many years now, and we're happy to share anything we can to do to help support small business owners, because that's what we're all about here. So if you're on the live stream, please jump on and say hello. We did have some audio issues on a couple of my last streams, so please make sure you say hi. Want to make sure that my audio is okay, my visual's okay, and I'd love to know where you're watching from or where you're listening from. Let me know, say hi on the live stream. If there's any issues, we'll do our best to solve those. But I think fingers crossed we should be okay today. But jump in and say hi. And if you'd like to ask a question, it's really easy to do. You just head along to ask.itgenius.com. I'm going to drop that in the chat there now. You should have that showing up on your comment platform, wherever you're watching from. But you can check us out at ask.itgenius.com. Okay, I don't have anyone on the chat just yet. I'm going to check my audio manually. Give me 1 second. Yeah, okay, that sounds perfect. Okay, well, let's go ahead and rock and roll. If you're on the live, please make sure you say hi when you can. Always nice to know who's listening and watching and where you are from, my friends. Okay, well, I'm going to head in and start asking some questions now. And so this is the interface that comes up, ask.itgenius.com. You'll get your question in here. And we've got a kind of democratic process here where you can upvote for questions that you'd like to have answered. And I'll do my best to get to all of them. Okay, so Anonymous asks, can I use my email aliases without paying for any emails on the secondary domains? I want to move all emails into one mailbox from other domains. Okay, well, this is a great question, and we talk a lot about aliases on the channel because we talk about how you can manage multiple brands, or how you can manage multiple domain names, how you can manage multiple businesses even, potentially in the same Google Workspace account. And if you use an alias domain when you configure a Workspace domain name for your domain name inside your account, well, you can actually choose to basically send emails from that alias domain. And the alias domain is, when you configure an alias domain, it's just basically an extra copy. Now, the easiest way to conceptualize this is to think about each mailbox as a bucket of email. And you pay for each bucket of email that you have in your Workspace account. Now, there's some exceptions to that rule. If you've got like a distribution group, which is a group of emails or a group email going to multiple people, or if you've got a admin account that is giving you access to the admin panel, but not giving a mailbox to that email address. Basically, you've set up just a user identity without a mailbox. You don't pay for those. But for each bucket of email you pay for one user account. Now, we've got many videos on the channel about choosing between alias domains versus add-on domains. Just search multiple domains and you'll find there's 5 or 6 videos on the channel about that already. But in this specific case, if you have multiple buckets of email and you have an alias domain pointing to one of those buckets, you only pay per bucket of email that you have set up. And for most businesses, that's going to be 1 bucket per human in the business. You may set up an extra bucket for a shared mailbox like info@your-company or sales@your-company, but for the most part, you're roughly going to be equivalent one bucket per human in the business. Now, if you have an alias domain, you can have multiple email addresses coming into that bucket. And so in our case, we've got itgenius.com, which is our primary domain, but some customers still email us on our old domain, which was itgenius.com.au. And they basically all come into each bucket for each one of our staff members, and they come into the same place. Now, if I want to send an email from my mailbox, I can actually choose which mailbox I send that from. Well, that's a bit misleading. I can choose which alias I send it from. I can actually send from either one of those domain names if I wish, and that's going to let me use multiple email addresses for my outgoing mail, but any of my incoming mail is still just going to come into the one bucket. That's how alias domains work. Now, I don't have to pay extra dollars for the additional domains that I've added. I just have to pay per bucket of email inside my company. There are some limitations and some drawbacks to setting up your account like this. Let's say if I wanted to send a calendar event, I can only send that from the primary email address and the primary domain name that is linked to my mailbox or my bucket of mail. But for sending an email out of my Gmail inbox, I can choose where I send it from. For signing into Google, I can only use the primary email address and the primary email domain. But if I type in the secondary domain or an alias domain, it may actually even redirect. Let's check that. I'm curious about that one. Okay, so I'll go ahead and open up my Gmail. Let's go to a gmail.com. And let's see if secondary domain will actually redirect. So I'm going to enter my secondary domain here. No, okay, cool. So I really have to use the primary domain for that to work. I thought I'd be careful there not to give you a bum steer. That's what we say in Australia, a bum steer, when you lead someone down the wrong path. Okay, great question. Thank you, Anonymous, for that. So if you'd like some help navigating between setting up multiple domain names in a Google Workspace account, click on the link down below this video. You can organize a free consultation with our technical team. Or if you know what you want already, you can go and buy a concierge subscription package or a quick fix from our website and get access to our tech team to help you out today. Okay, great question. I'm going to go ahead and mark that one off. Now, if you're on the live stream, I can see there are a bunch of people on the stream. Please jump on and say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. Would love to know. And yeah, we always love a bit of live interaction and live questions. If you've got a question, I prioritize answering live questions first as much as possible. So please jump on and ask me a question if you have one. Okay, let's keep moving on to our next one. All right, now I'm just going to go ahead and check my stream is still working. Yes, it is. Okay, that's always good. All right, next question is from Chris. I'm wondering why Google Workspace doesn't introduce something like Loom or Microsoft Stream for its paying customers. These have been around 7 years ago. Yeah, good question. Good question, Chris. Oh, it's spread across two questions here. To record and upload shared videos into a video library where team members can watch, comment, and basically do the same thing as Loom. 7 years ago, Google have a crappy, outdated screen recorder, and it doesn't have a video library. Yeah, look, I've got to say, I agree with this one. I'd love to have Google have something in this space. Unfortunately, they've, for whatever reason, decided that it's not in their purview to build an application like this. Unfortunately, we don't have any great options within the Google ecosystem, apart from the very basic Chrome web clipping app, which lives on Chrome OS. If you're on a Windows machine or a Mac machine, you're out of luck, you can't get access to that. But I do have two strong recommendations of apps that you can use, and I'll tell you the different ways that I use them and where I use the different ones. Now, the first one is obviously Loom. It's the most popular product out on the market for recording your screen. And I really love Loom because it now has added a bunch of AI features in the last year that really make it ahead of most other things I've seen in a long time in terms of screen recorders. Loom will automatically snip some of the ums and the ahs out of my video by default. Obviously, it gives you the option to play it back at a faster speed, which is great, but it will also provide a automatic AI-generated title and an AI-generated, well, I mean, it's just some transcription software. You get the transcription, but an AI-generated let me try that again. And you'll also get an AI-generated summary based on the automatic transcription of your video. Now, I like these features in Loom because it makes it really quick and easy for me to share video updates with my colleagues. And I probably use Loom 10 to 20 times per day, as I'm often giving a lot of feedback to my team on their work. And I want to articulate sometimes something that I can't say in words, or I'm faster at speaking than I am at typing. And I love Loom because it automatically gives you a URL. Without even having to click, it automatically puts it in your clipboard, and I can literally just hit paste and paste that wherever else I'm working. Now, I happen to spend a lot of time working in my productivity suite, which is Asana, and typically we're collaborating on a task, and if I give feedback, I'm just dropping that Loom video link into the task, and then my team are picking up and they can watch that at their leisure. It's called asynchronous working, which means that we don't have to jump on a call, we don't have to jump into a meeting together, we don't have to DM each other back and forward and be online at the same time. I can send that feedback in a short snippet, and my team can work on that at their leisure when it works for them. I'm not interrupting the work that they're doing, and they're able to get back to me when they want to. Works great. Now, what's the second tool that I use, and why do I use it? Well, my second screencasting favorite is called Screencastify. Now, this is a Chrome add-on, Chrome plugin again, and lives inside your Chrome browser. Now, Screencastify does one thing really, really well, and that is when a recording is finished, it will automatically upload that recording into my Google Drive. It does it in the background, it does it automatically. I don't have to set up any apps or any other features in the background or automations for that to work. It literally does it. The moment I hit stop, it's automatically uploading my video into Google Drive. And I still have the basic features like being able to click one button and generate a shareable URL that I can share with anyone else. That's really useful. But the one time that I use this, or the one process that I use this for specifically, is when I want to create training for my team. When I create training for my team, I typically want to put that into Google Drive. And that training eventually needs to be uploaded and embedded into our Google site, which is our online intranet where we store all the systems and the processes and the how-tos for our business. Now, the reason I love Screencastify is because it automatically uploads every video into Google Drive by default. Well, I can go into that video with one click from Screencastify, and I can choose the Organize Files button, and that will allow me to put it into my training drive within Google Drive. And this saves me a bunch of time. If I had to do that through something like Loom, or if I was even recording a meeting inside of Zoom, well, I'd have to download the file, I'd have to potentially process the file, and then I have to upload it into Google Drive manually, which, if it's a long file, might take some time. I like that this runs in the background and is pretty much immediate for that to happen in the background. Now, let me see if I've got Screencastify here on my computer, and let me give you a bit of a demo of how it works. So I'm going to click the Screencastify button here, and I'm going to hit record, and I'll just go ahead and record my screen. And here, I'm just going to imagine that I'm giving some instructions on doing something on, I don't know, maybe it's on slido.com. And then I hit stop sharing. Now, immediately, it's going to pop up and open a fresh window, and it's going to start uploading this to Google Drive in the background automatically. Of course, it's going to ask me to sign in again. Let's do that. Okie dokie. Now, I'm assuming this has already uploaded it to Google Drive because I can't see it anymore, but I'm going to check the video link here. So it'll give me a video link that will make it playable in the browser using Screencastify's app. But if I go down the bottom here to Google Drive, you'll see there's actually a Google Drive link. And if I click this button to view on Drive, it will open the file where it's stored on my actual Google Drive. And I can click a button here and click Organize. And that's how I can move that straight out of the Screencastify folder and into my training shared drive, which I use to share our training with our team. Here we go. So I would put that in the team training drive. So that makes things really useful if you're recording trainings for your team and you want to have them all in one place that can then be embedded into a Google site. I use Screencastify for this specific reason, and I use Loom for pretty much everything else these days. Love that question. Thanks for asking it. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to show off those cool little tools. I'm going to go ahead and tick that off. Now, well, maybe even just to round off the question, Chris has asked, why doesn't Google build something like this? Google are a large company and they have a lot of priorities. Unfortunately, they have billions of users now, and when they go to build a product or they consider building a feature, they have to ask themselves, is this going to be useful for a billion people? Literally. I mean, Gmail has more than 2 billion users now, and they've got to decide, are we putting engineering effort into building something that's going to be useful for a billion people, or do we not bother? Now, Google, just like any other software company, has the internal dysfunction of management and middle management and the people under middle management, and then they've got all of the challenges of running a global business, and they've got all of the challenges of competing, basically priorities for attention. And that means that Google is less likely to make smaller incremental improvements to these kind of applications with new daring bets, and they're more likely to make big bets on huge applications like launching Gemini or Bard in response to GPT. That's where most of an energy for a business like that is going to go. Now, should they build a feature like this? Would it be useful? Absolutely, it would be very useful. But I think in Google's mind, they're probably thinking, well, we created Chromebooks. Chrome is the best operating system out there, according to Google. And I think it's pretty good, but it doesn't, meet everybody's needs for every particular use case. They've built a screen recorder feature into Chrome. And so they're probably not thinking about people on Macs and people on Windows machines and what their needs are. In Google's world, you do things the Google way, and that's to use Chrome devices where possible. And so I don't expect they'll build a feature like this into their workspace ecosystem for other platforms. It would be a great feature, but unfortunately, it's not the case. And so that leaves the marketplace open for other providers like Loom, like Screencastify, to come in with a great product that happens to integrate deeply with Google. And in that case, I think we've got a pretty good option at the end of the day either way. Great question, though. All right, let's mark that one answered. And if you're on the live stream, hello, Andrew. Thanks for joining from wet and windy UK. Well, I'm actually in Perth at the moment, and it's wet and cold, which is a bit weird because I just had the last 2 weeks in Thailand. And before that, I was in Northern Australia, which is also hot. I'm going like up and down and over the equator, and it's now cold down here as well. So I feel you. It's cold and it's wet. Thanks for joining. And if you've got any questions, you can drop them straight into our live questions. You can drop it into the YouTube comments if you like, but otherwise you can drop it into ask.itgenius.com. All right, we've got another question here from Anonymous. I'm trying to clean up a large amount of conflict folders which appeared in our Google Shared Drive when I was trying to reorganize files and folders. I've been able to determine that the folder where the issue may have originated, but I don't understand what is causing this. Any advice? That's an interesting question. I'm going to guess that if you have conflicted folders in your Google Drive, it's probably something related to synchronizing down to your local computer. And I'm going to guess that the conflict was created somehow on the computer that you're using right now. Let's dive into it and try and explain why I take that position and what's going to bring me to assume that. Now, I've been working with file systems, computers, small business technology, and business owners for over 20 years now. I started as a consultant literally when I was 15 years old, and I grew up a business that eventually I left school and turned into a company, and 15 years of running that company later, here we are. Now, the interesting thing when it comes to computers and systems is usually when something happens that's unexpected, it's something to do with human error. Now, we've got a bit of a joke in the IT industry that sometimes it's a PEBCAK error, P-E-B-C-A-K. And what that means is problem exists between computer and chair. And that means, well, what did the user do that caused the IT or the business application to perform in a way or work in a way that was unexpected? And what we try and do when we build software, when we build business processes, when we build services, is for us to be as user-centric as possible, meaning that we try and make sure that no one accidentally gets something wrong. Now, we approach this from a service perspective in our business with our concierge service, where we give a free domain name and free hosting of DNS to all of our customers, because we know that from time to time, customers are going to get in and dick around with the domain name settings, and they're probably going to break their email. And if we're managing it, the customer still has the option to go and log into our portal and manage anything to do with their own domain name themselves if they want. But they're probably just going to ask us to do it for them, and that's included for free as part of their concierge service. So at the end of the day, we've eliminated one thing that the user might do to potentially stop them having a good experience, which is receiving your emails on time and having your business, be able to receive orders and communicate with customers and work. Now, the reason I mentioned this in context of this video is I am, in all my years of working with Google and working with the Google Workspace ecosystem, I've not had many times where Google has randomly done something to break a process or duplicate or delete files or destroy data. From time to time, we've had customers come to us and say, Google ate my spreadsheet, or Google lost my file, or Google created a mess in my Google Drive, or Google changed the sharing settings on this file and now I can't access it anymore. But in most cases, we can trace back through logs, through reports, through administrative investigation, that somehow another piece of software or a person's actions that were maybe accidental has caused the actual issue to happen. And so what we do is, when an issue comes up like this, where someone says, hey, Google ate my files or Google doubled up my files, we usually try, and it's not about pointing the finger, but we usually try and investigate, okay, what might the user have done, or what might another action have done that's caused the issue. It's very, very, very unlikely that a piece of software like Google Workspace, which is deployed to literally billions of people to access, it's very unlikely that that piece of software is going to just break or something go wrong. Now, there are bugs. And there are certainly times where something has gone wrong in the Google ecosystem. But it's very unlikely, because Google has a quite robust process of testing with small groups of people and then rolling out changes to progressively larger and larger groups of people, doing their balances and their checks to make sure things are working correctly before hitting the green light and deploying a new change or a new update or a new piece of code globally to the billions of users that use it. Google, in fact, have one of the best reputations in the world for reliable services and reliable tools. Okay, now I've shared all of that. That gives you the history and the context. Let's look at the actual practical of what's going on here. So a large amount of conflict folders have appeared, and we've got to work out what's going on here. Now, if you're trying to do organization of files and folders, quite often what happens is you're dragging and dropping and you're changing things, and some common accidents can happen from time to time. Sometimes you may drag and drop a folder and accidentally drop it into a sub-file or subfolder of one of the ones that you were working with. And when someone comes to us and says, hey, my file's just disappeared, what that sometimes actually means is I dragged and dropped it into a folder and I can't see it anymore. The second thing is that Google Drive's synchronization tool on your desktop computer is not completely infallible. Unfortunately, just based on the way that computer architecture and particularly cloud synchronization works, when we make a change on our local computer, maybe we're moving around some files or some folders in the local version of our Google Drive, that is the files and folders that have been synchronized to our local computer, it does actually take time for them to be uploaded and synchronized to the internet. Now, Google's smart. If you move a file from one folder to another folder, it's not going to re-upload the whole folder. It just sends an instruction to the web that I need to move this folder, or I need to rename this folder, or move this file, rename this file. But Google does have what's called a queue for those changes. Now, so that Google's servers don't get overloaded, so that your internet connection doesn't get completely overloaded, or your computer may run out of memory, Google doesn't make all of these changes in real time. It logs all the changes to a queue, and then the queue is processed. Now, it may open multiple sessions at the same time, and so it may be doing 10 queue items at the same time or 12 queue items at the same time. But if you've just moved 100 files, well, Google's only going to actually tell the server online, your online version of Google Drive, to move or rename or change each of those files, 10 to 12 files at a time. And if, for example, you are adding some new files or you are adding some new folders to your Google Drive on your computer and you're waiting for them to be synchronized online, well, that queue might be full of files that you're trying to upload. And as you're renaming files, well, potentially you don't have those renaming instructions go up to your online folders in time until you've finished uploading the files that you've been working on. Now, there's some other ways of kind of like getting around this. You can pause and restart your Google Drive synchronization, and sometimes that will force Google to clear the queue, and sometimes it will, do all the renames, and then it will get back to uploading the big files. If you restart your computer part the way through this process, well, from time to time, there can be issues with that queue of changes that are happening on your local computer and trying to be synchronized online to the web. And so those interruptions may mean that files that you changed on your local computer don't actually get reflected properly on the online version of your MyDrive or your shared drives. From time to time, Google Drive might crash on your computer, and some of those changes may even be lost. And what that means is what you think you rearranged on your local computer just may never actually be properly reconciled on the online Google Drive. And what can happen then is you reboot your computer, and once you reboot your computer, Google Drive checks everything. And it checks all the files that are online, and it checks all the files that are on your local drive. Keep in mind, if you've got tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of files, which you probably do, that checking can take a lot of time, and computers aren't perfect. Sometimes they get a few things wrong. But what may have happened here is if you get files that are changed on your local computer and they're different to what's reflected on the online Google Drive, well, you may find that Google has a problem reconciling that. And Google's instruction to the software when something like this happens is to look at all of those files and just re-upload everything that's on your computer that's not yet in Google Drive. And that may be a little bit annoying because you may end up with multiple copies of files or multiple copies of folders. But Google wants to err on the side of capturing everything and keeping everything rather than deleting files, even if it thinks it's a good idea to delete them, or even if it knows that you've got a double up of folders. Google's Google Drive app doesn't have the logic built in to say, hey, it looks like you've accidentally duplicated a folder, or it looks like I crashed last time and the folder's been duplicated and now there's 2 copies of things. It's not actually that smart. Google Drive, when you launch it on your computer, will look at what's on the web, look at what's on your computer, and if there's anything on your computer that's not on the web in your Google Drive folder, it's going to upload that. Sometimes that means you'll get double copies of files, but you still at least get to keep everything. Now, what might have caused that double up to happen if it wasn't an issue with your Google Drive crashing or you uploading or changing too many files at the same time and your computer didn't quite capture all of those changes and log them and upload them properly? Well, it could be third-party software. I mentioned that earlier, that could be a potential cause. Third-party software might be a backup software or a file synchronization software. Maybe you want to synchronize files to a network device locally in your home as an extra level of backup. Not something that I recommend, but plenty of people tend to do that when they're doing DIY backups. Maybe you have an antivirus software which is scanning files or scanning folders. Sometimes they will lock files. Sometimes they will disrupt the architecture of a file as they're doing a scan on it, and it triggers a resynchronization. Now, most software is going to be compatible with Google Drive, and so it's unlikely that you have any issues with that. But if this is something that's happening consistently, well, you might want to look into that. Now, once you've got a set of duplicated files and it's a bit of a mess, if it's not too many files, hopefully you can get them fixed and reorganized manually. It does take some time, but that would be always my preference in getting things tidied up so you don't accidentally lose anything. Because the alternative is to use a software tool to reorganize your files or delete the duplicates or find the files and folders that have duplicates and give you options on how you manage and how you handle those. Personally, even though those tools are useful, if you can avoid using them, it would be best to unsort and refix things manually because you want to make sure that you're not losing any data in this process. And some of the automated tools, when trying to be helpful, will not always capture every single one of your files, and you end up kind of having to manually drag and drop and fix the sorting. Anyway, that would be my recommendation as much as possible. Now, finally, if you're doing any kind of file organization on your local computer, it's my strong recommendation you do it where you've got a good internet connection. If you've got a spot in the house where the Wi-Fi is a bit spotty or not that great, try and plug into a cable and you'll probably get a faster internet connection. And what that means is with a direct cable connection, let me try that again. That means with a direct cable connection to your router, Google Drive can synchronize faster and any changes you make can be reflected online faster as well. It also means there's less chance of any dropouts, which may impact it. And of course, as you're doing this, make sure that your Google Drive is on and active, and it'll probably have a little spinning icon to let you know that it's actually synchronizing the files as you're working on them. Cool, great question. I haven't seen one that's that techo for a while, so I appreciate that question. Thanks for asking that one. All right, let me grab a drink of water. Okie dokie. So we have a question here from Andrew. I have a large number of pics stored in older Google Drive folders in Google Workspace, which I'm looking to copy and import into Google Photos. I can't say a way to import direct, so I currently have to download it to my Mac and then upload, which is very annoying since it's all on Google Cloud. Suggestions? I don't think there's a way to import directly from Drive on the web. I know you can do that. From Google Drive on your local device, but I'm going to assume you've got a whole bunch of legacy photos. Maybe it's 10,000 photos and 5 or 10 or 20 gigabytes of stuff. Downloading all of that and then re-uploading all of that is a pain in the butt, especially if your internet connection is not super fast. My mind goes to two things. Number one, you may be able to achieve this with Zapier. So creating a Zapier zap, point the source at your Google Drive folder online, and then the destination at your Google Photos account of the import feature of your Google Photos account. You would want to do a one-time data migration using Zapier and have all of that data move across. Second option is do this via a cloud service of some sort. So if you go to DigitalOcean and get a virtual Windows desktop, or you could go to Google Cloud Platform, get a virtual Windows desktop using their virtual machines. You could install Google Drive, download or synchronize your Google Drive to that virtual machine, and then upload them all to Google Photos there. Now, depending on how much data you've got, you might not want to bother with that. But if you really need to do something cloud to cloud, getting a virtual Windows box in an online cloud environment is usually the best way to do it, because you don't have to rely on your local internet connection to do the heavy lifting of the data transfer. You can just remotely connect to it using Chrome Remote Desktop or using Microsoft Remote Desktop if it's a Windows box, and from there you can get access to the machine, move the data that you need to move, and it's all running at the speeds of a data center, which is usually a gigabit of internet or sometimes even more. So that should help you out with that one. Great question though. Tammy asks, I'm trying to migrate my data from Outlook to Google Workspace, and I keep getting this error message, Exchange impersonation error, unable to open the mailbox. Okay, cool. I don't know what that particular error means, Exchange impersonation error. I'm going to assume that is something to do with authentication error. Maybe the user you're using to authenticate needs to be a super administrator for that to work correctly. If you're stuck with an error and you want help from our technical team to help with your migration, please get in touch with our team. Just click on the link down below. They'll be very happy to help you out with this. Just troubleshooting that one particular error. I'm not sure if our team have come across that particular error before themselves, but I'm sure they can work out how to solve it because we're very, very good at resolving errors to do with migrating mail from Exchange. Okay, let's go to our next question. I'm going to go ahead and just check how I'm doing for time. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and pop a quick chat message to my producer in the background here. All right. And here we go. This question from Anonymous. I'm deeply entrenched in the Microsoft technosphere for compliance purposes. I need to maintain my current Microsoft tenant and email for compliance. What is the best way to facilitate collaboration between Microsoft and Google Workspace? Okay, excellent question here. Let me address it. If you are in the unfortunate situation of having to work with both Microsoft and Google and you feel stuck in the middle, let's try and address how we can fix that. Now, there's many reasons someone might be stuck in hybrid land, or can we call it in limbo, between two different productivity systems. Sometimes it is that you're part of a franchise group, the head franchisor runs Microsoft, you want to run Google, and so what we've had is many customers in franchise groups come to us and say, hey, can I forward my Microsoft emails into the Google ecosystem? I want to run a workspace ecosystem for my franchisee, and then let's just leave the head office's email as Microsoft, and I'll run Google Workspace for ourselves. Another scenario is a large organization, and there are specific roles that really want to work with specific Microsoft tools. Usually that looks more like the organization is in the Google world, and just a handful of people want to use, for example, Microsoft Office. And that might be, your CFO wants to use Excel, or your legal team have software and that integrates deeply with Word. Sometimes it can be, you've got a particular user group and they just really, really, really want to use Outlook, right? And these days, I mean, we've been a long time getting people off Outlook and into Gmail. These days, that one's less of a thing. But sometimes, I hate to say it, it tends to be more of our mature age customers, or very mature age customers, where they're just not ready for technology change. And they just really, really want to use their Outlook, and it wouldn't be good for the business to try and force them to change. Now, some of the other situations that you may have is what we call split delivery. And that's where an organization truly needs to use both different applications or both different suites. It may be that you have a large corporate enterprise and you have different units or different groups inside that enterprise, and different units and groups are either exclusively using Workspace or exclusively using Microsoft. And usually this happens where there's been like a merger or an acquisition, and one half of the business is deeply entrenched in the Google way of doing things and doing everything in Google, and another part of the business or another division or the parent company or another subsidiary in the roll-up is deeply entrenched in Microsoft. And for both of those parts of the organization, it's not a good business case to switch, right? It's just too ingrained, and there wouldn't be any benefits, like the cost wouldn't change, and the pain of the change, the pain of the hurting would be way more than trying to make the two work nicely together. There are many different ways that you can integrate and have the different apps, interoperating within themselves or between them. And it starts out right at the very basics in kind of like small business land, where maybe you just need to forward some emails because you're that franchisee and the franchisor wants to dictate that they're using Microsoft, but you really want to use Google. Or in a large enterprise, you may have complete hybrid mail delivery setups where either Google or Microsoft is receiving all of your mail and forwarding on email to the alternative email provider and the alternative workplace productivity suite based on their particular mailbox and which mailbox that falls in. Is it a Microsoft mailbox or is it a Google mailbox? If you're in an organization where the technology changes extend to hardware, maybe you have some Chrome devices that you're running, but you also have some Macs and you also have some Windows machines as well, and you want to do directory management. That would be something along the lines of, okay, let's say we've got one directory in Microsoft and we want to have the Google users deployed. Every time we deploy a username and password in the Microsoft directory, we want to automatically deploy a Google user account. Now you can configure single sign-on and directory synchronization between a Microsoft directory. It might be on Azure, it might be on an Active Directory controller, and we can synchronize that to the Google directory. There's even third-party directory tools that you can use and third-party identity providers, which will actually give you the option to have a centralized directory that could even push to Microsoft or to Google, depending on where in that organization that person is. Let's wind it all the way back and let's start with the basics with small business, and then I'll work my way back up into the enterprise as well. Now, if you're a small business and for some reason you still need to use some of the Microsoft tools, you want to use Google for your primary email delivery or your primary workplace productivity tool, but you've got to use some Microsoft. In most cases, that's as simple as subscribing to Google Workspace, having that as your primary, and then you just buy an Office subscription, and that Office subscription comes with Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook. And if you want to connect an Outlook account to your Google Workspace account, that works just fine. I mean, my preference not to use Outlook, and we've got many other videos on the channel covering that specific question. But if you want to synchronize it to your Google world, well, you've actually got a really great plugin for Microsoft Outlook these days, which synchronizes natively all of your Google email into Outlook. Now, the search is still not amazing, and you miss out on all the other cool features that you get online with Google. But at least you get your email, your folders, your sent, your received, and any changes you make to dragging an email out of your inbox and into one of those folders in the Outlook on your local desktop is going to reflect to your phone on your Gmail app. It's going to reflect to Gmail online and in the web. And so effectively everything is going to be in sync. The next thing, if you want to use Word, Excel, and PowerPoint and save those files into your Google Drive, you can save them in their native format. So in the native Microsoft format, they can be saved into your Google Drive. And in the old days, it would automatically try and convert them into a Google document format. And we all know that if you convert from Word to Google or vice versa, it's not always perfect. It's usually far from perfect. Well, if you want to save something in a Word format or an Excel format and you don't want to worry about having to convert it, you can save it straight into your Google Drive. It won't automatically convert them for you unless you've ticked that box in your settings, and you can keep them in their native format. You can even open them and they'll open straight up in the Microsoft tools as well. They won't even bother you or prompt you and try and change them. So for the most part, a small business that has Google there for your ecosystem as your primary ecosystem and Microsoft as a kind of add-on, it works fine. Now, what about the other way around? What if you want to use Microsoft for your primary email delivery in a small business and you want to use some of the Google tools? That tends to happen right before customers come to us and do a full migration, right? Usually for the first year or so of starting to get their hands dirty with Google Documents, their staff will just be using them naturally with Gmail addresses. Now, that of course creates a pretty big security risk. And we don't really want that to be happening because your company data is on someone's personal Gmail account and that could go wherever. So what do we need to do? Well, we can, even if we're running Microsoft as our primary email provider, set up a Google Workspace account and use our business domain name for the users on that Workspace account. Now, what I'm about to suggest here actually doubles your bill for your email productivity suite because you need to pay for your licenses for Microsoft Office 365 for your mailboxes, and you also need to pay for each user that's using Google Workspace if you want them to use folders, files, and the Google document formats, and you want to be able to protect all of those email addresses. But many companies do this when they want to start using the Google tools and the Google ecosystem, but they're not quite ready to give up their mail delivery going to the Microsoft ecosystem. Now, how do we set it up? It's as simple as registering for Google Workspace account. You verify the domain using your DNS, but you don't change your MX records or your mail records in your email. So you basically just never take it live. You verify to Google that, yes, we own this domain name and you can set up users with those email addresses under that domain name, but the actual emails won't ever go into those mailboxes. You could even switch off in the admin panel Gmail if you wanted to, because They're kind of useless if there's no emails being sent to them. But your team will be able to make use of Gmail, well, not Gmail, will they? But your team will be able to make use of Google Docs, Google Sheets, and the rest of the Google ecosystem. And you will have a secured login for each one of your staff members that they can now use to access services with their new Google identity. So that's a bit more of a hybrid setup. I'm going to check on this question again. Moving up to mid-level or mid-market and enterprise companies, there's some deeper integration that you might be looking for. Something like, how can we get our teams talking to each other on chat? And Google have recently announced a third-party integration which will actually provide interoperability between Teams chat users and Google chat users. That means that if you have two parts of your company and they're running on different Microsoft and Google setups, well, they can actually talk to each other. Next up, you're probably going to start thinking about meetings. And Google has a number of third-party integrations which will allow Google Meet to connect to Zoom, WebEx, and other meeting providers. It will also connect to Microsoft Teams as well in some instances. Now, that's not one I've set up myself personally, but the tools are out there. Businesses also come to us and say, hey, what's the best way for us to manage our directory? Should we have Google as the master? Should we have Microsoft as the master for identity? Honestly, that's probably going to come down to what other tools do you want to integrate with Google or Microsoft for your directory. If you want to use something like Okta for identity management and manage permission and access to lots of different technology tools across your technology stack, well, that's going to come down to what has the best interoperability with either hooking this up with Microsoft or hooking this up with Google. If you have other third-party single sign-on tools, like maybe you want to have everyone using Canva in the business, and you want them to log in with their business identity, have a look at what features can I get if they log in with a Google account versus with a Microsoft account. So if you're a larger organization and you're trying to understand, well, how can I get these talking to each other, you want to look at what is the broader set of integrations that you want to have managed with your identity service, and which one of those are going to work best when choosing that primary directory. Google and Microsoft will talk to each other and that's fine, but the big question is, what else does it have to talk to as well? Now, finally, we come to devices. Obviously, if you're a Microsoft device-heavy organization, it might make sense to go with Active Directory. If you have a large user base, like more than 100 employees, you're probably going to be wanting to set policies on the individual desktops to manage things like security, what your users can and can't do, and maybe you even want to change the background of everyone's computer to be your company logo. Well, all of this can easily be done in Microsoft Active Directory. And although you can connect your Microsoft machines and your Mac machines to your Google identity and use Google as an identity provider and a security provider for those end desktop computers, obviously you're not going to get anywhere near the customization or anywhere near the control capabilities as you would get if you've got a Microsoft computer for your staff and a Microsoft management system for your directory. So that would be another one to think about, is what devices are you using? If you want to use Chromebooks, well, Chrome devices can join a Microsoft identity network, but you're not going to get all the same features that you would get using Google Device Management inside the admin panel of Google Workspace. So there's a broad perspective of how you can get these talking to each other, whether you're a small business or a mid-market or enterprise customer. If you'd like some help navigating this or even putting the pieces together of actually getting everything talking, we specialize in hybrid environments and helping business owners and their IT management teams to navigate this and get it working in a way which is going to be efficient for you in cost. So hopefully you don't end up with double licenses, but also it's going to be productive for you and your team. Click the link down below if you'd like a free consultation. All right, great question. I love that one. Haven't handled one of those for a while. Anonymous asks, I'm facing the problem that if I host a name server of a website, then email incoming is closed. If not the website, then email incoming starts. Can you help? Okay, great. I'm assuming that English is not this person's first language, but I'm going to rephrase the question so it makes sense. So if I set up my website name servers on a particular host, my emails start working. If I change my name servers, my emails stop working. We're going to do a little bit of a lesson on DNS here, and let's see if I can break this down easy enough for everyone to understand. If you go to our channel and you search for DNS, I've got a number of breakdowns on what the basics of DNS actually are, and I'm not going to take you right through that whole model now. But what I do want to share is one key and important difference that you need to know. When it comes to DNS, you've got name servers, and those name servers basically say, in this domain name, where am I going to look for my DNS records? DNS stands for domain name system, but what it actually is a set of records that tell things where to go. If someone wants to open up your website, they type in your domain name. The A record tells someone where to go to find your website, the IP address of the server that's hosting your website. If someone wants to send you an email and they type in an email address at your domain name, the MX records, or the mail exchanger records, will point someone to where your email hosting is. In most cases, that's probably going to be Google Workspace. Now, when you have those DNS records configured, they need to sit in a DNS host. And that DNS host may be your website provider, it may be a cPanel, it may even be a web builder like Wix or Squarespace. We recommend on this channel that you make use of Cloudflare for your DNS hosting. Cloudflare are a free DNS hosting service, and they also have a number of great tools and features added on top of your DNS hosting, like a web application firewall and caching, which will help to speed up your site, as well as security options that help to keep the nasties out. Now, we are a Cloudflare partner, but we don't make any money with you going to Cloudflare and using their free plan. So you can trust that this is a solid recommendation that's just good for you to do for your business. Now, what do you do if your emails right now are working with one set of name servers, but not working with another set of name servers? What that actually means is one of those is configured incorrectly, and you're likely switching between one set of DNS records, which is correct, and another set of DNS records, which is missing. In this case, the question is saying that my emails have stopped working when I changed my name servers. That probably means that you're missing your MX records or your mail records in the name servers that you're pointing to when it doesn't work. So what's the fix? Well, you're going to need two things to fix, or let me try and say that again. You're going to need two places to look when we work on a fix for this. Number one, you're going to need access to your domain name. Number two, you're going to need access to your domain name settings or your DNS host. Now, your domain name is where you configure your name servers. The domain name registration you pay yearly, and that's basically so you can own the name. But the one thing that you get in that domain name when you buy it is the ability to point your domain name to different name servers, effectively pointing it to different DNS hosting accounts. Now, secondly, you're going to need access to that host account. You're going to need access to wherever your DNS settings are. And some of them can be a bit confusing because the name servers don't always make it obvious where they're actually sitting. It makes sense if you're using Wix or Squarespace that the name servers will say Wix or they will say Squarespace. But sometimes the name servers are completely nonsensical and they don't seem to make sense where they're actually pointing on the internet, which can be hard to track down where your DNS settings hosts actually are. It may be something that you set up 5 or 10 years ago and then forgot about, and maybe that's why you're in a pickle searching for this video right now. Now, my recommendation in this video is that you switch your DNS settings from wherever they are now into Cloudflare. And be careful because this process can break some things, but if right now your emails aren't working, well, this might be the best place for you to go to get things fixed. Configuring a Cloudflare account for your domain name means that you get a fresh set of DNS hosting. And they do have simple instructions for updating your name servers on your domain name registration so it points to Cloudflare. Cloudflare propagates changes to your domain name very quickly, whereas in the past it can take 24 to 48 hours for the changes you make to come into effect. Typically, Cloudflare is pretty darn fast because they are one of the largest gateways to the internet for websites all over the world. And the process to fix this is to first identify where is your website hosted, and that could be an online builder, it could be a WordPress site, it could be a cPanel server, and find the IP address of that server, and you enter that into the A record of your Cloudflare domain. Now, some web builders will have specific instructions. You may need to use a CNAME or an alias to get it to work. look up the instructions for your DNS records for your web hosting provider, wherever your website is stored, and they should give you instructions on how to get that fixed. Number 2, you want to set up your MX records. Now, your MX records are your mail records. They say where your email goes. And obviously, if you're looking for Google Workspace, you want to make sure that they're pointing to Google Workspace. Look up the DNS records or check out our blog for the correct DNS records for your Google Workspace account. And from there, you want to enter those into your DNS as well. Now, there's some final steps that you need to make sure you get right. And here's where it gets, unfortunately, a little bit more technical. These days, if you're sending any kind of marketing emails or just to ensure that no one pretends to be you on the internet, you want to make sure that you add SPF, DKIM, and DMARC records to your DNS. Now, if that sounds like complete gobbledygook, I'd recommend you get some tech support to help you out getting those done. We do have a video showing you how to configure them from start to finish and how you can get all of your DNS records set correctly so you don't end up sitting in someone's spam mailbox because you haven't had your email delivered. But once you get each of those done and they're all configured inside your Cloudflare account, your email should start working pretty quickly. Now, in any case, if you've had issues with your DNS and your emails have been bouncing back to customers or not being delivered correctly, you do need to do potentially a little bit of repair work. If you've had a customer that's tried to email you and their email hasn't come through, typically emails will attempt to be redelivered within the next 24 to 48 hours. So you may find that emails who were sent or you may find emails that were sent a couple of days ago have now reappeared in your inbox, and you don't know exactly how long ago it's been since they were sent, but they're here now. You might have to do a little bit of communication or relationship repair with a particular customer or a particular order to manage that if that's the case for your business. Also, if someone tried to email you and they received a bounce back, well, that email is not going to be redelivered. You need to be careful if you are expecting an important email and maybe someone didn't notice that it bounced back. You might have to reach out to that person personally and say, hey, I was expecting to get an email from you. I've had some issues with my email. Could you let me know if it's come through or not? Or could you let me know if you sent it? I just want to check that I haven't missed something important. Eventually, after usually a day or two, all your emails will be flowing correctly again, and you should be good to go. Now, it goes without saying, if you need help with this or if any of this is too challenging, click the link down below and get in touch with our team to help you out. We're a professional consultancy service and we help small business owners with DNS issues all day long. This is literally our speciality, and we have a quick fix service where during Australian and US business hours, our team are online for instant support. So if your emails have stopped right now, they're not being received, or you're unsure how to fix your DNS issues that you've got going on with your domain, we'll be very happy to help you with that. Click on the link down below to get started. Great question. Very, very common issue. Many people break their stuff when they're switching between web hosts or domain names or whatever. All right, if you're on the live, please go ahead and say hi. Great. Hello, Anna. Would I do a reading for you? Yes, absolutely. I'm assuming that's not a tarot reading. I'm assuming that's answering a question. If you've got a question, just drop it right into ask.itgenius.com or in the live chat, and I will check that out. I'm just going to drop the link in here again. If you've joined late, it's ask.itgenius.com. You can put in a question, and I'll do my best to answer it live. I've just got 2 questions left in the queue, so I'll be finishing up off these. I'll be finishing up on these questions, but if you'd like me to cover anything, please let me know. Okay. Question from Anonymous. Is using a secondary domain good for cold emails? I have lots of thoughts on this, and I want to cover this for you if you're considering using a second dummy email alias for sending cold emails to people. Now, let's first zoom out and ask ourselves, why would someone do this? Why would someone use a secondary email address to send cold emails to someone? And I've done this in the past. It's basically so you don't trash your reputation on your domain name by sending spammy or borderline spammy emails. What people will do is they will choose a domain name that is similar to their primary domain name. And I wouldn't recommend something like a misspelling because it's probably going to cause issues with people trusting your brand. But in my case, at the time when I was using this method, instead of using peter@itgenius.com, I used peter@itgenius.co. Now that seems plausible enough to be an email address that's legitimate and coming from a domain name. I could use a different country code if I wanted to. I could use itgenius.us if I wanted to, because we own that as a backup domain to our primary brand. But whatever you choose, effectively the methodology is to set up a secondary domain name, and with that secondary domain name, do your marketing, cold outreach, emails from. And the thinking behind this is that it won't impact the sending reputation of your primary domain name. Now, for the most part, as far as email architecture works, this is pretty clever thinking. And for the most part, it does work this way. There are some risks which I'll cover in the moment, but I want to share with you how email ranking and reputation works. Email domain names, for the most part, are not correlated with each other for reputation. The email infrastructure of the world hasn't really changed all that much in the last 30, 40 years since the internet was started. And it basically means that when you have emails going in and out of domains on the internet, you just have those linked to that one physical domain name. It wasn't really designed and built to have multiple domain names interacting with each other under a collective brand umbrella. Email architecture isn't really that smart. So if you have a domain name, like I have itgenius.com, and I'm sending a lot of emails to people and those emails are marking those as spam, not only does that go into their spam mailbox in Gmail and Google learns that, emails from Peter might be more likely to be spam, but it actually sends that spam report back to the literal email architecture of the internet. And there are public blacklists for domain reputation. Now, if you do enough spamming, or maybe your website has got a hack and it's got malicious code being hosted on it, your whole domain name can be given a bad reputation score. And if you put on one of those blacklists or block lists, well, it can harm your ability to send email to anyone. Now, obviously, we recommend that people don't send spam emails because it's illegal in most jurisdictions, but it's also not a good idea because it can hurt your reputation of your email sending. That means that if you send one too many of those marketing emails or cold outreach emails, well, you might not even be able to send legitimate emails anymore, because when you go to email that supplier or that customer that you already have a relationship with, well, your email just might not go through if you wind up on one of those blacklists. So that's the thinking in setting up a secondary domain name to do your kind of gray area email sending outreach campaigns that might not necessarily be smiled upon by your email provider that's providing your primary domain name. Now, where Google Workspace comes into this is an interesting one. If I wanted to send a mass market, cold, automated email, I probably wouldn't do it inside of Google Workspace. Google Workspace does have a reputation inside your account that does cover multiple domains. And Google also has limits on the number of emails that you can send per day right across your Google Workspace account. If you want to do large mass email campaigns, you're probably pretty quickly going to run afoul of Google's sending limits, because apart from Google giving you some basic mail merge options inside of Gmail, Google and the Google Workspace ecosystem is not designed for large-scale mass emails. You want to use an enterprise transactional mail system for that. It might be something like Twilio. It might be something like Mandrill, which was acquired by MailChimp, so it's now called MailChimp Transactional, or various other transactional email providers. Now, if you really do want to have that email coming into your inbox when someone replies, well, you can still set up a secondary domain as an alias for your account. Now, I can't give you advice here, but I will give you my opinion. If you are sending from your secondary domain that you want to use for cold outreach, and that's going out through a transactional mail service, which is probably authenticated, and you're sending cold emails in a way that's not spammy and not getting your domain blacklisted or running into issues with the reputation of the domain by too many people hitting the spam button on those emails, well, I think there's probably not much harm in those emails going out on a secondary domain, and then when people reply, having that secondary domain configured as an alias domain inside your Google Workspace account. That means that customers can reply and you'll get the replies in your email. And every subsequent reply in that email chain will then come from your primary domain with a good reputation. And that's what you want. If someone responds to your cold outreach, you want to be able to continue the conversation with your primary brand so it's no longer confusing for your customer. Now, as I said at the start, this is a bit of a gray hat technique. It is a very clever technique, but your results will vary. And to be honest, I can't recommend you doing too much that's in any kind of gray areas when it comes to email marketing or technology, because there may be limits that I don't even know about that might catch you up. And we don't want anything bad happening to your domain name. So tread lightly with this, and you do so at your own risk. Great question, though. Cool. All right. The next question here, and I might check my live chat just to make sure there's no other questions that have come through there. Okay. Zamboanga substation. Oh, are you in the Philippines? I wonder if you speak Ivachanya or Bisaya. Hello, Kasabat Bisaya Gamay lang. I speak a little bit of Bisaya. Okay, so what's the purpose of Google Workspace? Google Workspace is, and I've got a great video on our channel, which let me even bring that one up now. Bisaya and Tusog. Oh, nice. Well, lovely to meet you. Kasabot kamay lang, pero ganahan ko mag-practice. I like to practice my Bisaya. Okay, so let me show you on our channel. We have a video that we released quite recently. Let me find it. Apps Explained. And this is probably the best overview of Google Workspace for you if you're just getting started, or even if you know it well and you want to, where's my, here it is, okay. Even if you know it well and you want to just understand what different apps you have available. And so if you want to learn the ecosystem and what what is included in all the different apps in Google Workspace, then watch that video first. That'll give you a good rundown of all the different features. Funnily enough, Google Workspace used to be called Google Apps, but I think that was confusing because you have Google Apps on your phone, you have Google Apps on the browser in Chrome browser as well, and calling their business system Google Apps as well was a bit confusing. So Google Workspace is the name of a business suite of tools, which most primarily comprises of Gmail, Google Calendar, Google Drive, then Google Docs, and Docs, Sheets, and Slides. Now, that all probably looks very familiar to most people who come across Google Workspace for the first time, because you've probably got a Gmail account which has all of those. Gmail, Calendar, Drive, Docs, right? You've got all those all in chat, and Google Chat and Google Meet are the two that I forgot. So it looks just like a Gmail account with one main difference, and that one main difference is that I get to use my own business or organization domain name with my Google Workspace. So when I go into my Gmail and I open up my Gmail, I've got my pretty little face in the top right-hand corner with my profile once it actually loads and opens up. Gee, it's taking its time. It's Hinai, which means slow in Bisaya. And for anyone who doesn't know what Bisaya is, one of the local dialects of the southern area of the Philippines. And I've been going there for many years, and so I've learnt the southern dialect. It's not Tagalog, which is the national language, or Filipino. It's a little bit different. Okay, so here we are. So I'm in my Gmail. I can click my pretty little face in the bottom here, and Google Workspace has my business email account that I'm signed in on, rather than a Gmail account or an @gmail.com account. And so since I am using and running a business, I want to have my business brand. This gives me the ability to choose my business brand. Now, what else does it give me? Well, it also gives me the ability to set up users under my company that I manage and I control. And those users, and it's going to ask me to sign in again here. I'll just do that. Now, these users are all of the staff inside of my business. Now, I need to pay per user, but I can create lots of different user accounts, and each one of those different user accounts I can use for my company, and it means that I can create one company under one brand, multiple different people using their own personal email addresses. So that's the primary purpose of Google Workspace. We've got lots more videos on the channel. If you watch that introduction one, that will definitely be useful. Oh, and I just found another one in my search here. We've got a beginner's guide to Google Workspace. So I'm going to go ahead and share the beginner's guide to Google Workspace as well. Cool. Currently using Office 365. That's another excellent question. The short answer to that, and I haven't done a comparison video these days. The short answer to that is cost-wise, it's pretty much same. Feature-wise, it's pretty close to same these days. Ask me 10 years ago, and I would have been very, very bullish on Google being a million times better and Microsoft being terrible. And at that point, Google was half the price, and it had better features, and the cloud features were better. The choice between using Microsoft 365 or using Google for your organization now really comes down to which ecosystem do you like better. Microsoft has a couple of particular apps and integrations that talk to things or other software that work well with Microsoft. And Google has a lot of integrations and apps that work well with other, mostly cloud-based applications. The other thing to factor in is, what do your staff like to use? Many staff these days, particularly that we have an emerging younger workforce, would prefer to use Gmail as their interface over using Outlook. And so using Gmail is probably going to be better than using Outlook if you've got a younger team. They're probably already using Google Docs. Many people are already using Google Docs. So if you're one of those businesses where you've got a young team, you're already using Google Docs, you like working on the web and you like working online, maybe you're already using Google Drive as well, it would potentially be a good idea to make that switch over to Google. Now, if you're curious about that, we've got a sales team which will do demos and talk you through the process and help support you with that. We have a large team in the Philippines, so Kasabot Bisaya siya. They will be able to speak Bisaya with you. You will be able to evaluate whether or not they're a good ecosystem by having a chat to our team. I think that would be the best thing. I can't cover all the nuance of the differences on this video, but click the link down below this video. You can book in a consultation session for free with a team, and they'll be happy to give you a demo and walk it through. Microsoft has a lot of automation. Yes, that's true. Microsoft does have a lot of automation, particularly in SharePoint. Microsoft's SharePoint is a much better solution if you want to do workflow automation than Google Sites is, which is their equivalent intranet product. No automation there. But I would argue that Google has a lot better integration to other apps because so many cloud apps talk to Google. There's a very large library of options for integrating with other cloud applications if you're using Google. Cool. I'll show off a little bit more. Hambug ko gamay, which means I'm a bit of a show off. Taga biyahe pirmi sa Davao. So I travel to Davao frequently, and taga Australia ug taga Davao pudko. I live in Australia and Davao as well. Davao, for anyone who doesn't know the Philippines, Davao is the southern city. But Layo sa Zamboanga. It's far from Zamboanga. Thanks for coming on the call. I'm glad I could practice some of my Bisaya. Okay, I will move on to my final. I'll move on to my final question. Cool. Anonymous asks, why does Google keep booting us off and logging us out? That is an interesting question. Why does Google keep logging us out? If you're locked out of your Google account and you're noticing that it's happening more regularly, there could be a number of reasons for that. Some are policy-based, and I want to show you how to find those policies in the administrator panel, and others are session-based. Now, we all know that cyber risk is becoming a really, really important issue for businesses all over the world. Many small business owners are not yet taking it seriously, but I think a lot of people want to know what to do and aren't quite sure how to do it. Now, there's some frameworks that the Australian government are creating to help business owners understand cyber risk and do a better job at protecting their businesses from cyber risk. But for the most part, that's not yet filtered down into a translatable and an easy way for understand for small business owners. So if you're not yet subscribed to this channel, make sure you subscribe, because we are, as much as we can, creating educational content to be digestible and to give you practical steps on how you can increase your security. Now, one of the things that Google is doing to help with this automatically for all business owners that are part of their programs is creating new ways of interacting with their services that are inherently more secure. One of their initiatives is called passkeys. And passkeys is a way of logging into applications without having to use a password. And it's possible that in 5 or in 10 years' time, using passwords may be less and less common and may even become a thing of the past. Passkeys are nothing more complicated than just linking your phone with a fingerprint scanner or a face scanner and authenticating that way. If you get a new phone and you have to re-register your fingerprint, you've got to still fall back to your password to get access to your account. But it means that the password becomes something that you only use rarely. And for the most part, you can log in faster just using a passkey than how we traditionally have logged in using a password. Now, why is Google doing this? Well, less people using passwords means less potential for passwords to be compromised and less potential for accounts to be compromised because those passwords have been compromised. And Google knows that not everyone is diligent enough to have a unique password for every website that they're using. And so sometimes you're going to double up. And if one of those websites out there on the internet that you've used previously gets hacked, and they get a username and password from that website that matches your Google username and password, well, guess what? They're potentially into your account. And so what Google are doing is they're starting to increase the security and increase the, let's say, skepticism of their systems in allowing you to log into your account. They have a security score, and that security score basically means that if you log in from a new location, or if you log in from a new computer, or if you are using your device in a place that you normally wouldn't use it, Google may flag some of that as potentially suspicious activity. And its first point of call is to ask you to sign in again. Now, that may be what's happening in the case of this questioner. It may not be what's happening, but I happen to notice myself, just anecdotally, that my logins are becoming more and more frequent. And it's asking me to log in more times than it would usually in the past. And I believe this is part of Google's increase in security and helping to keep more of us safe by doing that. Is it a bit annoying? Yes, it is from time to time. But when you configure a passkey for your computer, well, it makes your logins faster, so you've got less to worry about when you're actually logging in. I noticed that this happened to me when I flew from Singapore to Perth last night. I've just landed in Perth, and now I've actually had my computer pop up and prompt me to re-log into Google on everywhere that I was logged into Google on this particular computer. It's obviously realized Peter was in Singapore yesterday, now he's logging in from Perth. We would just want to make sure that this is actually Peter and he actually flew here overnight, which I did. Okay, so I promised that I'd show you how to check this setting in the admin panel, because our admin panel for Workspace actually gives us the option to set a policy around how long sessions will last inside our company. And if we log into our admin panel, which is available from admin.google.com, we can configure a policy for user sessions and we can choose what that timeout is. So I'm going to go to the security menu, I'm going to go to authentication, and then I'm going to go to login. And I think it's in this menu. I hope I'm right. I hope I'm right. No, it's not. Okay, let's try another one. Where is it? Session control. Okay, so we're going to go to, let this open again, just so my editors can grab this later. We're going to go to security, access and data control, and then Google session control. Now you can see here, you can choose what your session duration is for the users that log into your Google Workspace account. You can set this at the top level so it goes to your whole company, or you can choose to set it for a subsection. These are called organizational units. And that subsection of staff, if they're in the right organizational unit, will receive the specific policy. For now, I'm just going to set it for the whole company and you can see here it's being set from above. Now I can choose how long a session will be before it automatically signs that person out and asks them to re-authenticate. And this is basically just good practice. From time to time, you'll have somebody log into your computer with their account, and maybe they just needed to borrow your computer for a day. Well, unfortunately, because of how these sessions work, that computer will stay logged in until someone actually manually logs back out of that account. If you go to a friend's place and you need to check an email, you might log in. Or if you have a computer sitting in your open lounge room that everyone in your family can access, well, you might log into a session there. And what this does is it keeps your sessions tidy by not accidentally leaving a session open somewhere out there outside of your control and outside of your daily use. If you happen to use someone's computer and that computer gets a virus, well, you probably wouldn't want to leave your Gmail logged in there for the next year in case their computer's compromised and something goes wrong. This session control allows you to protect your accounts and protect your staff from things accidentally happening if you're left logged in a whole bunch of different places. Now, there's a third thing that you can do to protect your security, and that is to check where your computers are logged into right now. So if we head along to our account, and I do that by clicking on my pretty picture, and I go to manage my Google account, inside my security settings, in my account settings, I can actually check everywhere else that I'm logged into my account. So I'll click on security, and I'm going to go and find my devices. When I click manage all devices, it's going to show me all the different places that I'm logged into my Google account from different devices. If I see an old device that I've been signed out of for some period of time, maybe that was something that I used previously and it's no longer being used, I can go in and actually I should probably show the button. Where is it? Okay. If I'm logged into an old device and it's obvious that I no longer have a need for that device, I can click the sign out button and it will automatically sign out my session on that device. Of course, if you see anything here that's highly suspicious, it might be a good idea to do a security checkup on your account, change your password, and lock the account down. If you'd like some help with that, we have a security team who will be willing to help you to investigate and help lock down and protect your account in the event that you think someone else may have access to your account right now. Okay, so I think we've pretty much covered that. If you're interested in help, click the link down below and our team will be in touch. If you are interested in asking questions, please drop them along ask.peter.tv. I'm just going to check there's no more live questions. Does Google Workspace have geo-locking? Yes, it does. Great question. Thank you for your compliments on my Bisaya. Yes, geo-locking is possible. It's only on the enterprise plans, but have a chat to our team about that. I think it's called context-aware access is the feature. If you search for context-aware access, then you'll be able to lock down to IP addresses or regions with geofencing, and you can get admin reports and other things sent to you as well if something works or doesn't work. Wonderful. Okay, we're going to wrap it there, guys. We are itGenius. If you're new to the channel or new to the stream, we help you systemize, organize, and scale with Google Workspace and a bunch of other small business tech tools. Please make your way around the channel. Get as much value as you can. If you would like a free consultation with our team, head along to the website, click onto free consultation, drop in your emails, and you can schedule a call with our team. Our flagship product is called Cloud Concierge, which is a unlimited all-you-can-eat IT consulting service for Google Workspace and all of our other supported apps as well. So if you want to build a dashboard in Google Data Studio, if you want us to help you set up integrations in Asana, if you need a CRM system, we'll help you set up Copper CRM. If you need shared mailboxes, we'll set it up on Hive. We do free domain name and DNS management using Cloudflare. All of these are included in a concierge subscription. It is the best subscription for small business owners using Google Workspace. It is very affordable, starting at just 250 Australian dollars per month, mind you, not even US dollars. That's Aussie dollary dues per month. Very worthwhile for any small business owner in the Google ecosystem. I would implore you to check out Concierge. Basically, you get all-you-can-eat access to an amazing support team. We have engineers, we have project managers, we have automation experts, everything from help me find the right formula for this Google Sheet to, every time someone fills out a form on my website, I want a lead alert to pop up in my Google chat and a new lead opportunity record to be created in my CRM system. Build that out for us in Zapier, guys, where our team will build those automations for you. If you want us to do your onboarding and your offboarding of your staff when someone leaves your company, we can migrate their mailbox and merge it into a secure place so you don't lose any of their data, and you can free up the license in your Workspace account. Basically, anything you need to do in the Google Workspace ecosystem or the small business tech ecosystem, our team will do that stuff for you. Think of us like your tech VAs, your expert technical VAs, and we're there on call anytime you need us during Australian and US business hours. So check that out. Check out Concierge. If you need help with something immediately, like you got just one thing that you need to get fixed, our quick fix product is a fixed fee product. It's a couple $100. If you're like locked out of your account, you need to get back in. If you want to do like a security audit and just check everything's set up correctly. If you need to implement one thing that you've heard on this live stream and you want us to, just implement that one thing on your account, let us know. We'll do that. If you're setting up a fresh account from absolute scratch, our team will help you set up a fresh account as well. That's all under the quick fix service. And of course, if you have any questions or you just want to find the right service for you, click on the live chat. Our team are there during Australian and US business hours, 6 days a week. And until then, I will see you on the next one. Thanks for coming, and leave us a like, leave us a comment, especially if you watch the live after the fact. I always try to get as many comments as I can replied to, and I'll see you guys.